Hi, I'm Tori Hageman, and I just finished this large floral painting. I had the best time with it. I actually did the block-in using acrylic paints, and then I did the additional layers in oil, which is fast becoming my very favorite way to paint. I'd love to show you how I did it and share some techniques with you if you'd like to stay tuned. I actually purchased this reference photo from Shutterstock. I usually take my own photos or I'll use free reference photos, but I was looking for inspiration and wow, this one really spoke to me. I penciled in the drawing on a white gessoed canvas. It was 36 by 36, but it felt like there was just too much space around the bottom, so I included some still life items, some lemons, which are super easy to paint, and some more flowers. I've recently been experimenting with using acrylic paints for the underpainting block-in stage and then going over that in oils, and the results have been amazing. Here I'm just blocking in my drawing using acrylics, knowing that I'm going to shift the colors later on, but mainly I'm just trying to get the canvas covered and get a good road map of where my lights and darks will be happening. There was something very freeing about knowing that this was just a block-in. It was going to be completely covered up. I used real big brushes, real fast strokes. It didn't take me long at all to put this underpainting in. I was really surprised at how quickly it went and how fun it was. It wasn't worrying or concerning in any way. I just blocked it in knowing that the time for finessing and fine-tuning was coming. So I was real pleased with this quick block-in. Now I have my oils out. I have ultramarine and rose, and I've made several piles of ultramarine from dark to light that I'm going to use on this hydrangea, and I've also made some piles using that rose, making some more purple tones. I'm using a filbert brush, so I have a curved end to that tip. I've got my liquid medium there just to make that flow a little better. And I'm going to just start laying in little strokes, turning the brush. You know, the individual petals on a hydrangea form almost like a clover shape. They're like 4 petals that come together. So it's important to turn that brush frequently and get those petals going in different directions. Typically on large paintings, I will speed up the video maybe 5 times. But on this one, you know, in areas like this, I've sped it up twice. I don't think I'm going to speed it up any more than that in these. I want you to see the brush strokes. I want you to see what I'm doing with the colors. I'm going to put some beautiful music to it, and you're free to skip ahead if something gets a little too slow for you. I wanted to mention 2 other things. This lightest highlight that you see me using is still not pure white. It still has a little bit of the blue, and I don't go into pure white till I get to the very end of the painting. And I also just wanted you to be aware, as you work around the painting, try to give a really interesting outside edge to that hydrangea. You don't want it to look smooth on the outside. Sometimes I'll intentionally just put a little place that juts way out and then comes right back in just to make it look as organic as possible. I'm starting to drop in some of that lavender now. I have found with hydrangea, if I'll just add a little bit of other color to it, it doesn't have to be anything particularly dramatic, but it really makes it look a little more interesting, and I think it warms it up quite a bit. By the way, I'm using a Richardson gray palette pad, and I just have it folded over to a sheet, and I'm using that as my palette. It's maybe 8.5 by 11. That might not be the exact measurement, but it's more like the size of a sheet of paper. It's real easy to hold in your hand as you paint, and then when I'm ready to move on to other colors, I just tear that page off and throw it away. I really like using that as my palette. I've never done that before. I had used the big sheets before and dropped them inside my acrylic Stay Wet box, but this was really easy and comfortable to hold in my hand. And the fact that it's gray really helps you judge those values. I decided to just do all the blue hydrangea at one time. You don't have to do it that way. You could just work around your painting, but since I had those paints out, I decided to do them all at the same time. For the highlight on this next hydrangea, I'm using a lot of white with this Charvin creamy yellow color. I'll list the colors that I use in the description box below. It's about the color of a buttercream, and I added a lot of white to it. I just wanted the highlight to really have a nice glow and look very warm, like it was light, not just pure white. That hydrangea and the gray one to the right of that, I wanted those to look like white hydrangeas with some green petals on it. And as you'll see later, I did them in the green and white. I did not like them, so I ended up redoing them later in the painting. So I won't spend a lot of time showing you these, but just to let you know what I was thinking there with the highlight. I'm using sap green with a lot of white there. I used to not get my lemons dark enough, but I started using like yellow ochre or yellow oxide, just dropping that in at the bottom, and it just gives a beautiful form, and then it makes the pure yellow part really pop. I've just, that's taken my, my lemons to another level. And then you just drop a little simple highlight on the top of that, and you've got a beautiful lemon. And I think they can really add a lot to a painting. It's nice to have something going on other than flowers. I have found one of the tricks with roses is to put a super deep color in that throat, a little deeper. I always go a little deeper than I think it should be, and that ends up being about right. But it's, again, it's that Like the lemons, getting the bottom of it deep enough, getting the throat of that rose deep enough is what's going to give it such beautiful form and interest. In order to keep good color harmony, I use the mixture of the rose and the ultramarine blue and some of the yellow and to make a gray, and it ended up looking too brown. I did the whole container. I didn't like it, so at the end of the painting I made a more white pottery looking mixture. So I'm probably going to skip over a lot of this just because I did end up changing the color, but just wanted you to know what was going on. And this will sort of show you what I mean. It just looked a little too brown for my taste, so that's why I ended up changing it at the end. But this is where we are now. I felt it was time to experiment with some backgrounds. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to keep this painting kind of soft and fresh. A lot of my work, I tend to use really strong colors, and I didn't want to go there in this one. I was really trying to pull myself back and keep it soft. So I'm using a little bit of turquoise with a lot of white, and again, I'll put the colors in the description box below. So I was just dropping that in, seeing how I liked it, and I ended up dropping in a little bit of the ultramarine and white, and finally some green and yellow near the bottom. I'll probably speed this up and skip around a little bit, but to give you a feel for that. But I do like having a background that's not just one solid color, that I'm changing that color out fairly often on my brush, and particularly with oils, just letting those colors blend seamlessly together. It can be a really beautiful, watery kind of look. Here you can see me putting some ultramarine and white in the middle of that turquoise color, just to break that up a little bit and keep the background more interesting. I'm just blending it in, I'm kind of scrubbing it in, and then I'm softening it with my brush, going back and forth, just getting those edges, just again, a seamless transition. Here I'm dropping in kind of a limey green. I'm not really sure why I did that. It just seemed like a good idea at the time. I think I was just trying to get kind of an interesting glow going near the end of the painting. And I didn't want to just have the same color background all the way around. So just dropping in a little of this and a little of that, just trying to, again, keep it interesting. Here I'm dropping some blue in again, and notice I'm using big brushes, big fast strokes, keeping that as loose as possible. Here I've gone back to that green hydrangea at the top, and I've decided that I want to make the highlight on that significantly larger. I felt like the painting was looking a little flat. For me, having really dramatic lights and darks is really important. That's a big part of the painting, and I felt like the painting just wasn't dramatic enough as far as the light. So I'm intensifying not only the lightness of the highlight, but I'm also increasing the space of highlight on this top hydrangea. And I'm going over the green, and I'm using the purples and blues for the shadow, and then letting it go to very, very light blue as it hits that white. But I just was so much happier with this once I redid it. I just felt like that green was sort of sticking out like a funny Christmas tree at the top or something. I don't know. It was distracting. It wasn't beautiful, and I was much happier with this, and I was much happier getting a really, really strong highlight on this. If you'll notice, I also switched over to a flat brush, which gave me a bolder, larger stroke, which I think helped on that main hydrangea. If you'll remember, in the acrylic block-in, I used a deep purple just to mark my shadows, but then I started changing those shadows to a deeper color of the table, and I think that was really beautiful and effective. There are the finished lemons. Added some leaves just to get some greenery and more interest there. I think bumping up the highlights was a great move. It really improved the whole painting to look a lot more dramatic. I love adding tons of little bitty flowers, things that you can just do with a simple mark or a couple of brush strokes up and down. I loved adding in the little pieces of greenery. They were real simple to do, just kind of filling in that space. I like putting little things in front of other things, putting little greenery in front of the roses, so it makes it look very three-dimensional. Just love it. Love that little morning glory. So here we have it. And here's the bowl with the lighter rendition that looks more like pottery than it did the first time around. Love the fruit and the debris on the table. I thought the roses were just beautiful. I love the colors and the depth of that. It was, gosh, it was a lot of fun to paint. Love putting in that simple background. Light coming in from the left side. Gosh, so much fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're going to try something like this on your own. If so, I'd love for you to post it and let me take a look. Thank you for joining me in this. God bless.